Good morning and welcome to Books at the Bottom of the Stairs. My name's Lorene. I have a different kind of angle today. It's between rainstorms. We're in Nova Scotia and the raining has been pretty pronounced for us. And if you're watching it on the news, if you're in Canada, you know we've had some power outages, and so I'm working with limited light and lots of rain and muggy. So I look a wreck. I'm trying to wear as few clothes as possible, which really you don't need to know. That's why the camera's facing away from me. And I'm looking at the annual question of what to take with me to the camp. And we're going for a little less time this year because we spent a good part of the May and June on the road, so we're not spending as much time up there. So these are my choices, and I also have about 10 books coming from the library, and then on August 9th, which you will probably hear about, we do our annual bookshop in Lunenburg. So the question is, what to take to the camp? About 3.5 weeks worth of fairly steady reading. Just looking up the stairs, this is Steve's pile, which I think is really hilarious because for years and years he would only have a couple of books on the go on the side, but a lot of those books are books that I've recommended, and I guess he's planning to just catch up in the camp. But I have a feeling this pile is it might conquer him. Anyway, that's his issue. I don't have to worry about it. Everything in there I have read. Well, right off the bat, these 3 books can come out of the pile because the Planta Sapiens and Lapidarium are meant for Nonfiction November, and they're both quite thick. And Love Songs from a Shallow Grave is actually last summer's read aloud that we just have not finished. It's so weird that has dropped off our to-do, considering neither of us really have a ton of stuff happening in the evenings, but somehow we're just not doing read alouds. So those 3 books off the pile. Meet Me in Mumbai is going to be the book club choice for September, but I'm going to try and read it a little early because I think there's only 2 copies. We're going to have to return it quickly. All My Rage by Sabaa Tahir is a recent recipient of the Prince Award, and although the book club hasn't chosen it, mostly because we have a voting system that doesn't it's a bit cockeyed, our voting system, but I think it will eventually come to the top. Everybody wants to read it, and it's just a question of everybody agreeing at the same time. And it's hard to explain, but anyhow, I'm going to read it now because I'm really interested. It sounds very good. Well, for the first about 10 days of August, this is my set of books to choose between. The bottom gray one is Marie Claire Blais. What was it called? I just looked at it. It is 2 books by Marie Claire Blais. The Day is Dark and 3 Travelers. Now, she's a French-Canadian author who I really enjoy, and she's someone I also have a little ongoing project of trying to read all her books, but I don't have a timeline attached to that because quite often her books are unavailable and I have to get them from university libraries. So that one has finally come in, and based on the other books that I have read by her, I suspect it will be either my nails will be clenched in my hands or my jaw will be clenched. It's not going to be a sort of easy swinging in the hammock kind of a read. The Ghost Orchard by Helen Humphreys is it's sort of a poetic look, historical overview. So I think, am I telling that wrong? Anyways, Helen Humphrey, my year-long project of reading everything. I don't remember entirely what it's about, but as I was pulling these books out, I was realizing that I have a lot of Helen Humphreys. So I have a second one here, The Machine Without Horses, which I think in a way I would probably prefer more than The Ghost Orchard, but I'm going to read The Ghost Orchard first, partly because it's a little bit smaller. And so I'm going to take this one out and put it with the other Helen Humphrey books. So the orange one there is Feminism Interrupted by Lola Olufemi. It's nonfiction, and I picked that up in our winter shopping in Lunenburg, and just thought, you know, I'm a feminist from the 60s and 70s and 80s kind of gal, and the way I understand it, things have changed considerably, and I am seriously outdated. It's time to get back into the game. Thomas King has been on my to-do list for an embarrassingly long amount of time because he's one of my favorite authors, and I'm generally like right up to date with anything that he's released that's new. So I don't know what's taking me so long here. I think, I don't know, could it be the red cover? Anyway, Sufferance is definitely on my to-do list. Dangerous Ages by Rose Macaulay. I got so long ago when I was doing a little project with Cheryl that, again, I've forgotten what it's about, but I think that one will be more on the fluffy side of things. The Poor Clare by Elizabeth Gaskell is very short, and it is a gothic ghost story, so I'm going to read that probably when we're back in town. Like we do come in for a couple of nights here and there just to make sure the house is looked after, and so I don't think I'll read it when I'm at the camp because I'm easily spooked. There's a lot of nighttime noises, and there's a lot of noises right at dawn, which is when I sort of have my worst nightmares. And you know what? Here's a story. For years and years, I was dreaming about this coyote that was coming up and sniffing in the windows and so on. And I'd look outside in the morning after having one of those dreams where you're kind of frozen and you can't move and you're half awake and you're sort of, am I looking out the window or aren't I looking out am I awake or aren't I awake? Well, after a couple of years of this, where this was definitely a repeated dream, I happened to wake up really, really early one morning and was just standing at the door looking out, and along comes this great big golden retriever, and obviously he knew exactly what he wanted to do, came up the path, sniffed at the screen door for the other building, came across, kind of sniffed at our front door, then came and sniffed at my window, and which is only about 6 feet away from the door, and then he jumped up onto the little deck that's beside us, which is sort of a working deck and storage spot, and then jumped down, which made a bunch of noise. And then he trotted over and down the little hill, which is again only about 25 feet away from my window, and leapt off the stone and into the water and swam around under the bridge and to his owner on the far side of the bridge. And so when they were coming back, about an hour later, I was up with a cup of tea and I went out to talk to him and said, is that the first time he's done that? And apparently it happens morning after morning. Now, I haven't seen both the owner and the dog for a couple of years, so I guess, one of them has changed location. But anyways, it wasn't a dream, it was reality. The bottom one here, Emily of the Deepest Memory, is I think it's actually a book for adults about a young child, and it's sort of a fairy tale, and it's sort of an unreliable narrator as well as an unreliable set of memories. So it's more on the it's kind of on a spooky gothic side, but not as, I don't think that's like it's deliberately meant to be gothic. I think the author apparently has just got a good sense of how to make you feel a little bit icky. So in talking about these books, I think I'm going to take Dangerous Ages off. It's not too big, but I'm going to put it in case I run out of books pile. And so that's it. I think those 6 will take me through the first 10 days, more or less. Because as I say, we're going to be doing some shopping on the August 9th day. Well, one year I ended up with no books at all, and another, one summer, and another summer I ended up with about 13,000 books. So who knows what happens on the 9th of August. Well, this isn't quite as bad as I thought it was. I realized that out of my pile there's at least 4 Helen Humphreys, which only shows how poorly I am paying attention to that goal of reading all of Helen Humphrey this year. So I've pulled all but one Helen Humphrey out, and we'll focus that on the winter. Now, so the top corner there, The Legend of Grey Hollow, is a middle reader, adventure, magic, and sort of creepy underworld type people. The Glass Hotel by Emily St. John Mandel. A lot of you will have heard of it by now, and I'm just coming late to the party. I really enjoyed her other two books. Blood Well Out by Jo Tregrieri is a YA novel that I purchased in the winter. And I thought that our reading group would go for it, but they're not quite as fond of as I am of Jo Tregrieri's writing, so it didn't win the vote. They're both from Persephone Press, and what they don't do is they don't put a blurb on the back or on the inside leaf. So I bought them based on the catalog, and I know that this far one is Dorothy Whipple, who I really enjoy, and the other one is Dorothy Canfield Fisher, who I've never read before, but it's quite thick. So, just based on that, she goes to September. Urchin is another sort of, what do you call it? Sort of, what are the impulse buy when you're, it wasn't at the counter, but I don't know why I picked it up. But it's spy, adventures, mystery, non-binary characters. It's by by Kate Story. The Irish Game by Matthew Hart is a mystery, and I believe based on true crime of a stolen Vermeer painting. And it's actually nonfiction, and I started it last winter, but other things just kind of captured my attention, and I became distracted. And The Flower of Gloucestershire was a Christmas present. Who is it by again? By Temple Thurston. I listened to a podcast called Night Times on Still Water, and in some of his earlier podcasts he refers to this book, and it's about the early days of narrowboating in Britain on the canals. And I think this is the first book that was written about being a leisure craft as opposed to a working boat on the canals. So it's sort of it's an early travel guide with narrowboats as its focus. And that was the one that I actually planned to read at bedtime, but there's no timeline on it. So I guess if I don't feel like nonfiction, nonfiction was Feminism Interrupted, Disrupting Power by Lola Ulfemi. So maybe that gets a little bit hard to read before bedtime. So in that case, I can read travel fiction. Is it fiction? I don't know. I'm not sure whether he fictionalized some of it or if it's accurate. I think in those days, the sort of line between, especially in travel fiction or what would you say, autobiography and reality and poetics gets a little bit mushy. So I think that will be my other bedtime reading while I'm up at the camp. So actually, I think that makes the second half of August as far as books go. And everything else I'll tuck up into September. And it's not as crazy as I thought, although as I'm talking, I just remember there are those 10 books coming from the library. Well, I guess it's going to be survival of the fittest. This is kind of sort of a survival game too, because I could vote them off the island, seeing as the camp is on an island. All kinds of funny stories there. Well, I will get back to you as I read each book and let you know how they're going. I hope all your reading dreams and adventures continue to come true, and that you get some really good holiday reading in as well. Bye-bye for now.